You're standing in a Beijing hotel room at 3 a.m. with a flight confirmation you can't show anyone, and a camera the size of a lighter taped under your ribs. Your heart's doing that thing where it hits your throat between beats. You're about to cross into the only country that actively prevents people from leaving. And you've paid $800 for the privilege. Most travel hacks are about shaving $10 off a flight or finding a cheaper hostel. This isn't that. This is the moment you realize that travel on a budget doesn't mean finding a discount code. It means understanding that the world has invisible walls, and some of them have armed guards. I landed in Pyongyang on a Tuesday. The guide's name was Min, which probably wasn't her real name. She boarded the plane in Beijing, wearing a red pin the size of a thumb, and she never smiled. Not once. Not when she introduced herself. Not when she explained the 17 things we absolutely could not photograph. Not even when the Swedish guy in our group made a joke about airline food. She just stared. You notice that kind of thing when smiling is your baseline for human interaction, and someone opts out completely. The airport had 4 gates. 4. The capital city of a nation of 26 million people, and there were 4 functional gates. The walls were painted a color that wasn't quite beige and wasn't quite gray. The color of a room designed to prevent you from forming memories. We collected our bags in silence. Min pointed to a bus. We boarded. No one asked questions because asking questions was listed in the briefing document as item number 4 on the will result in deportation list, right after photography of military installations, and right before criticism of the supreme leader. Here's where most budget travel guides would tell you to haggle with taxi drivers or find the cheapest neighborhood. Here's what I learned instead. In North Korea, there is no negotiation. There is no budget version. There's the price, and the price is the price. And the price includes the fact that you cannot leave your hotel without a guide. You cannot leave your district without permission. You cannot leave your thoughts unfiltered because walls have ears, and Min is standing 3 feet away from you taking notes. But here's the actual hack nobody talks about. The real money moves happen before you even book the flight. The tour operators, the ones running the legal gray market expeditions, they're racing against time. Sanctions shift. Political winds change. Every trip they operate might be their last. That means they overfill groups. They run tight margins. And they make mistakes. I paid $800 because I booked 3 weeks before departure through an operator who was clearing inventory. Same tour, same itinerary, same guide. A Swedish couple I met paid $1,400 through a different company 2 weeks earlier. The operator had space. They dropped the price 40% to fill it. No one announces this. No travel blog will tell you. But if you're monitoring the 5 operators licensed to run North Korea tours, and you're watching their websites for sudden group formations, you can exploit the gaps. The budget traveler's real superpower is noticing when someone else has already sunk the fixed costs and is desperate for variable revenue. That's when you move. Day 1 was the Pyongyang Grand Monument. That's the bronze statue of Kim Il-sung, the founding dictator, 80 feet tall, flanked by 2 tower sculptures that supposedly represent the worker and the intellectual. Min explained this with no tone. She was reading a script. You could hear the spacing in her delivery, the pause marks. She'd said this exact thing to the exact same group composition thousands of times. I watched her eyes move across the plaza in a grid pattern, scanning for one of us stepping too far left. Photography was permitted here. Only here. Only from 3 marked positions. Only from angles that didn't reveal the gaps in the monument's restoration or the worn patches on the plaza's stone. This is when I realized something about budget travel in countries with restrictions. The savings don't come from finding cheaper hotels. They come from understanding information asymmetry. See, the tour operators are charging you for access, but they're not charging you for knowledge. The guide wants you to see the monument. She doesn't want you to know why it needs restoration in the first place. She wants you to photograph it from the marked positions. She doesn't want you to notice that you can only photograph from those positions. The moment you understand the difference between what you're permitted to see and what you're actually seeing is the moment you start to extract real value. The Swedes paid double because they booked last minute through a premium operator who promised enhanced access. We got the same access. We just paid less because we understood that premium branding is a tax on impatience. On day 2, we visited the Pyongyang Metro. 40 stations, 370 meters underground. Min explained that it doubles as a fallout shelter and that the trains run on North Korean coal reserves and that 8 million people use it daily. All 3 statements might be true. None of them are the real thing you learn in that tunnel. The real thing is this. You're standing on a platform that was built by labor you don't want to think about, under a city that actively prevents its population from leaving. And you're thinking about how cheap the tour was. And you're smiling at Min, because smiling keeps the machinery running smoothly. And somewhere between noticing that your guide is 40 years old and has never left her city, and thinking about the $600 you saved by booking last minute, you realize that the cheapest way to travel isn't always the most honest way. The budget traveler gets an advantage that the luxury traveler doesn't. The luxury traveler pays for comfort and thinks they've gotten the real experience. The budget traveler has to look directly at the machinery. Because when you're paying less, you can't afford the illusion that your money isn't participating. You're in the system. You're being guided by a woman who's reading a script to thousands of people, and her salary depends on your compliance, and her government depends on your compliance, and the whole enterprise depends on your compliance. And you're thinking about how you got here for $800 when that Swedish couple paid for $400. On the final day, we visited a collective farm. This is listed in the itinerary as authentic rural experience. What it actually means is you're standing in a field, watching people harvest crops, while a camera crew films the fact that you're watching. Min was different here. Softer. She actually explained things instead of reading them. I think because there was no official script for a farm. There were no marked photography positions. We were off book, and for the first time, I saw her breathe. An older farmer came over and through the translator asked me where I was from. I said, America. His whole face changed. Not with hostility, with something closer to curiosity. He asked me if America was expensive. I told him yes. He nodded like he'd confirmed something he'd always suspected. And I realized in that moment that the information gap I'd been exploiting, the gap between what I was permitted to see and what I was actually seeing, cuts both directions. He'd probably never leave his village. He was wondering if the world outside was as expensive as the propaganda suggested. I was wondering if the propaganda was actually working. And we were both trapped by the same system, just from opposite sides. Here's the thing. Nobody tells you about budget travel in restrictive countries. The hack isn't finding the discounted tour operator. It's understanding that every dollar you don't spend is a dollar that validates the system's efficiency. You saved money because the machinery runs perfectly. The guides don't need to be friendly. The restrictions don't need to be explained. The information gap doesn't need to be closed. It runs on its own gravity. I left North Korea on a Thursday with 180 hours of hidden camera footage and 4 photographs I was legally allowed to take. The footage was worthless because showing it would destroy the business model of every operator running tours. The photographs were stunning because they captured exactly what I was permitted to capture. Nothing real, everything curated. The budget traveler's ultimate hack isn't a price. It's recognizing when the cheapest option is the one that costs the most. Click the link in the description to get instant access to 20 verified travel hacks and much more. The system doesn't want you asking questions.